All right, good afternoon. This is item number 2, SB13. Senator Wieckowski, welcome.
Madam Chair, good afternoon, members. Let me start off by accepting the committee amendments on page 8 of the analysis in full. SB 13 addresses the top ADU barriers identified by the Department of Housing and Community Development, which include reducing impact fees, eliminating owner occupancy, and providing a safe path for unpermitted ADUs to be brought up to code. We have significant studies from places such as the City of Santa Cruz and UC Berkeley that have shown that developer impact fees are excessively high for accessory dwelling units. For instance, UC Berkeley found that some localities are charging as much as $50,000 per unit, and that number doesn't even include the impact fees charged by the utility districts and other districts. Many homeowners that want to build ADUs are either stopped in their tracks or build them illegally, unpermitted, when they are handed these fees. It is estimated that there are nearly 300,000 unpermitted units in the greater Los Angeles area alone. ADUs are built on lots that have already paid development fees. Homeowners should not have to pay them again, let alone pay the amount charged for the primary unit. This is especially true considering the fact that a homeowner can expand their house for a bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, and they would pay zero impact fees. Madam Chair, members, I think I mentioned this last year. My wife and I built a 440 square foot addition onto our house, put another stove in, a brand new bathroom, and 440 feet. It was a one-day permit, a one-day over-the-counter permit, and we didn't pay any impact fees. So SB 13 also addresses the owner occupancy ordinances, which require that the owner to live on either the ADU or the primary unit, and we're mirroring the Bloom language that was adopted by this committee earlier. There is an unfound fear that investors will be buying homes just to build their ADUs to rent them out. In reality, studies have shown that this fear is misplaced, and that the majority of ADUs are built by homeowners to house family and friends. The City of Portland did a study that found that out of 1,200 ADUs surveyed, only 10% were built by investors. Owner occupancy requirements limit the marketability of ADUs and prevents the construction of them. There have been banks refusing to give a loan out to homeowners because of this requirement. There is no other type of residential unit that has such restrictions. The state of Oregon is on the verge of banning home occupancy, and Seattle just recently passed an ordinance preventing it. California should follow in their footsteps, and we will have a 5-year period to see how that looks. We need to address these remaining barriers that professionals, researchers, and bankers, homeowners, and the legislature have identified as important issues. With me today are a couple of experts. We have Steve Vallejos, who's the president of Prefab ADU, and I have Dr. Vinit Mukhija, doctor, who's a professor and the department chair of urban planning at UCLA. Doctor?
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My research is on informal housing, which I call unpermitted and unregulated housing, and I've used to do this more in developing countries, but recently, last few years, California and city of Los Angeles particularly. By looking at real estate sales listings, I've tried to estimate how many unpermitted single-family homes, how many units, how many unpermitted ADUs are there with single-family homes in the city of LA. And my estimates are we have about 50,000 in the city of LA and roughly 200,000 in the county of LA. Since the various SB 1069 and AB 2299 last year, the city of LA has had success in allowing permitted ADUs, and we have seen almost 10,000 permit applications for accessory dwelling units in the city of LA in 2017-18 and the first quarter of 2019. The city of LA's success has largely been based on the lack of a owner occupancy requirement in the city. The city of LA also has relatively low permit fees, not permit fees, but development fees related to ADUs. So those two have been a key in this move towards more formal ADUs. And I think it would be helpful to have similar requirements across the other cities in Southern California and certainly the state. Are likely to see many more permitted ADUs if the fees were less, if owner occupancy requirements were lower. And it is, my estimates are, if we do have 50,000 unpermitted units, that is about $7.5 billion of real estate values that could bring in 75 million or so in real estate taxes every year. At the city county level, that would be 300 million. So there might be ways of making up for lost revenue on the development fee side through property taxes, but we would have a window and an opportunity to regulate some of these units and stop the ones that are particularly dangerous. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Steve Leos. I'm the president of Prefab ADU. I've been building ADUs for about 14 years now. So I've seen the change in the ADU industry since the early legislation as to and to what's happening now. I've built over 180 of them scattered across multiple jurisdictions. So I've seen a lot of different cities and how they react to ADUs. We keep about 15 to 20 active builds and about 30 to 50 in the design and approval process. So we're very aware about what's actively going on in the market. So I wanted to share with you some information about the market itself, and then help really focus on these two key issues of owner occupancy and impact fees. So right now we've done a study of the market, and there's about 9 million homes in the state of California that would qualify for an ADU. With studies coming out of the Bay Area Council, doing research on homeowner interest, the interest level is about 25%. So that would mean that in California, there's roughly about 2.25 million homes that would be interested in doing an ADU. So needless to say, there's a huge opportunity to address affordable housing with ADUs, and I think it's much greater than most people even think that's possible. As we speak, LA has recorded over 10,000 ADU applications since the early 2017 bill from Wachowski. And we're currently working on a deal with San Jose right now to produce 5,000 units for them, and focusing on them being affordable and expedited. And we're working on similar efforts with San Mateo, Napa, Sonoma County, as well as Oakland. So the interest level is definitely there. There's no question about it. Everybody sees this as a viable way to address affordable housing. But what does that really mean? So when we look at ADUs and we do ADUs and we actually provide financing in-house, what it means is that we can generate homes that actually can be rented out at 15 to 50% of the local AMI levels. And I think it's really important to know that, because you're talking about a product here that doesn't require subsidies. So there's not a lot of red tape. It doesn't require infrastructure. It doesn't require us allocating land. It's a pretty seamless product in terms of what can be done here. And as an example, we're actually wrapping up a project in Davis, which I thought would be of interest to you. The ADU is actually costing them $830 a month financed. And so market rate units are going for about $2,200 a month. So that's about a $1,370 savings, and that puts them right at about 50% the AMI level to put a family member in that unit. So, and again, all without subsidies. So this effort here is hugely important, and I want to emphasize that. But when we look at the things that are barriers, owner occupancy is definitely is a concern. As the senator mentioned, ADUs are the only thing that seems to be sitting on single-family properties that are getting an owner occupancy requirement. And it's strange that it even shows up tied to ADUs going into multifamily, where that same multifamily property, we can build a duplex and there's no owner occupancy on it. So it's a little strange to do this, and homeowners aren't very receptive to that. But more importantly, I wanted to share with you that as a builder of ADUs, and really the #1 builder of ADUs in the state, 80% of our business is done for families. So I understand that there's a fear that that this could be something where investors come in and ruin the neighborhood, but without anybody, you know, really focusing on restricting that, we're still doing 80% in areas like Oakland that doesn't have owner occupancy requirements. So I think it's important to know that there's a fear, but it's not based in fact. It's based in, you know, a potential or a concern of what could happen. We do know, as the senator mentioned, from Portland, that that when owner occupancy was removed several years back, you know, they're still seeing that speculative builds are only 10% of the market. We also know that when we look to markets that are more developed and try to understand what's going on with them, there are 4 markets that are the biggest ADU markets in North America, and that's Portland, Los Angeles, Vancouver, and Austin. And all of them have one thing in common. They don't have owner occupancy restrictions. So if we're going to tap into the potential of ADUs, it's incumbent that we find a way to remove that owner occupancy requirement, because that is something that homeowners just don't seem to understand, and I think it's a very difficult thing. When we get into impact fees, that's another piece of this puzzle that I think is a big deal breaker. We just recently completed a project in Dublin. The total fees were $30,000 for a 300 square foot unit. The ADU cost $97,000. So those fees represent about 31% of the building cost. When we divvy up the fees, the actual building permit portion of it is only $3,900. So what we're really saying is that you're looking at $26,000 worth of impact fees tied to this 300 square foot ADU. And I think we need to address this, because there's a even at the city level, there's a misunderstanding about that proportionate scale and how to appropriately deal with that. And when there's a misunderstanding, there's a tendency to leave things the way they are and make the homeowner the one who burdens that, rather than address it. And that's why I think it really does need to be addressed at this level. And one of the things that I always tell people when we look at this is when we bring 2 scenarios and we compare them to each other, we look at an addition and we look at an ADU, the same property, the same size house. One person does an addition, the other person does the ADU. The addition isn't assessed any of those impact fees, but yet the ADU is. One solution, the addition, just creates a McMansion problem for us. The other is actually providing affordable housing, but yet the affordable housing solution is getting hit with the impact fees. So we really need to look at this and think about this and understand it, because it isn't as if we're taking money away from cities when we talk about removing this. We're talking about actually getting them to understand it in the same way they're understanding that addition, which isn't helping the city out at all.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Yes, thank you. That's all I want to share.
Great, thank you very much. Are others in support, please?
Good afternoon, Chair Adam Regley on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce. In strong support, thanks.
Hi, Dylan Casey, the ADU Director for California Renters Legal Advocacy and Education Fund, and full support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sonia Traus from San Francisco Bay Area Renters Federation, strong support. An owner occupancy requirement is an anti-renter prohibition. It's very unfair. Thank you.
Thank you. Just your name.
Shayla Silva on behalf of the California State Retirees in support.
Thank you.
Matt Regan with the Bay Area Council in support.
Thank you.
Zach Subin with Urban Environmentalist and SFUMB in support.
Thank you.
Wallong Tam with San Francisco YIMBY in support.
Thank you.
Keith Mosier with Mission YIMBY in support.
Thank you.
Holly Fermini on behalf of Habitat for Humanity California and the Nonprofit Housing Association Northern California in support.
Thank you.
Luis Morante on behalf of California YIMBY in strong support.
Todd David, Bay Area Housing Advocacy Coalition in support.
Thank you.
Jennifer Speck on behalf of the California Association of Realtors in support.
Thank you.
David Garcia, Turner Center for Housing Innovation, UC Berkeley in support.
Madam Chair, members, Michael Gunning with the California Building Industry Association here in support.
Thank you. Are there any others in support of the bill? Seeing none, we'll move over to the opposition. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Excuse me, Jason Wright, Lead California Cities. we have an opposed unless submitted position on this bill, and we've worked a lot with Senator Wachowski and Senator Bloom on these various ADU bills over the year. I think the main sticking point really is around fees, and we've talked a lot about impact fees. And I'd just like to remind everyone that the impact fees, I mean, we don't make money on it. If we're going to, the gentleman before was talking about how is this going to deprive cities of money? I think when we don't have the impact fees, we're depriving residents of the services that they're going to demand when they live in our community. But we do acknowledge that it can be a problem and it can be a barrier. And I think, with the fee study coming out, we certainly want to work with the legislature on addressing the fee issue. But, with that provision in the bill, we must respectfully remain opposed unless amended.
Thank you. Welcome.
Madam Chair and members, Erin Holland, Public Information Officer for the North Tahoe Fire Protection District on behalf of Fire Chief Mike Schwartz. North Tahoe Fire is a special fire district serving most of the California side of the Lake Tahoe Basin. There is no doubt that we are in the midst of a true crisis in regard to housing. As a public safety agency operating in a high-end seasonal resort town, we feel the crisis of affordable workforce housing to our core, and we admire and support the author's dedication to seek solutions. However, we must state a position of opposed as written due to the unintended consequences of SB13 in its current form. Affordable housing is not the only crisis that we face. The slow-moving crisis looming over all of us in California is insurability or the lack thereof. In my fire district, 7 out of 10 homeowners are being faced with cancellations or non-renewals for single-family homes. These are homes that have defensible space, that meet the state fire marshal's code requirements, and that were built with acceptable materials. These homeowners pay their premiums on time and have a solid history of no claims, and are being blanketed by the zip code with cancellations or increases that are putting their monthly insurance premiums up there with their monthly mortgage payments. What is that going to do to property values? Who will finance homes that can't be insured? And who can purchase a home with a monthly insurance premium as high as their mortgage? A large portion of the state is rated as high or very high fire danger, like my fire district, and existing homeowners are struggling to find insurers. ADUs within high fire danger areas are no longer required to meet many of the state fire marshal's code minimum requirements that apply to other dwellings in these areas as a result of efforts to keep ADUs affordable. This measure eliminates the mitigation fees that would fund the additional fire service protection required for this additional density that is lacking fire protection systems. Our stations, many of them are at capacity. Without these fees, we don't have the ability to fund more personnel or additional apparatus. After the recent devastating fire seasons that have set new records for California in loss of life and property, it is all too clear that fire and life safety requirements cannot be overlooked or waived for any reason. Adding density adds risk. Waiving codes and fees waives safety, period. Measures to add density must include fire and life safety codes and must include mitigation measures to maintain fire protection service levels that meet the demands of an increased service population. Fire districts are without a revenue source to keep up with population growth and the new service and infrastructure that it demands. As a result of Proposition 218, fire districts' ability to levy surcharges, fees, or assessments is not simple or likely to be achieved. ADUs may not add parcels, but they will add density. My district already has a scalable fee schedule, whereby our fees are related to the additional square footage or fuel being added to the forest, keeping development affordable. ADUs are allowed to be constructed up to 1,200 square feet. In most communities, that is the size of a typical 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single-family home. In the wildland-urban interface, that may be considerably larger than the original dwelling. There are no provisions that require these units to address workforce housing issues by renting for below market price. There are no provisions that prohibit these units from being placed into vacation rentals, and there are no provisions that require the unit actually be rented out at all and not simply be treated as a cheap workaround for a homeowner trying to build on an addition. These are all unfortunate consequences of allowing this well-intended bill to pass as written and do not fulfill the measure's intent of addressing the affordable housing crisis, especially in the wake of this insurance crisis. We respectfully request that you oppose the bill as written.
Thank you very much. Others in opposition?
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Karen Lang on behalf of the Solano County Board of Supervisors. Their opposition is based entirely on the code enforcement piece of it. They did have a chicken coop converted to an ADU at one point that they had to abate. So they're very concerned about that piece specifically. Thank you.
Just your name and your, the chicken coop got me.
Madam Chair and members, Andrew Antwi on behalf of the City of Beverly Hills in opposition.
Surprising.
Madam Chair and members, Lauren De Valencia representing the American Planning Association. I was outside. I apologize. The committee amendments are being accepted.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, we'll take a look. We may be able to go neutral with those amendments and appreciate the committee's work on those. So
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Kiana Valentine on behalf of the urban counties of California. We have an opposed unless amended position.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sharon Gonzalez on behalf of the cities of Beaumont and Cupertino and the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District in opposition.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Paul Gonzalez here today on behalf of the cities of Rancho Cucamonga, Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, Torrance, and Santa Clarita in opposition.
Thank you.
Chris Lee on behalf of the California State Association of Counties, opposed unless amended.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, Moira Top on behalf of the City of Anaheim in opposition.
David Jones on behalf of the cities of Burbank and San Marcos in opposition.
Nadra Mama on behalf of the California Association of Recreation Park Districts, the California Fire Chiefs Association, and the Fire Districts Association of California, all in opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Anthony Tannehill, California Special Districts Association, still in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have no others in opposition. Are there any questions of the committee?
Thank you,
Member Ramos?
Madam Chair. And just to be clear, there's several amendments that were offered, and the author of the bill did accept those amendments. We heard some testimony right now as far as opposed unless amended, but there was some severe amendments that were offered and accepted by the author. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. My reputation precedes me, so I have accepted the amendments contained in the staff report. This is the fourth year that I've had an accessory dwelling unit bill, and it's generally the same group of people or same interests that have opposed the bill. So I think some of the people who oppose, when they get a chance to look at the amendments and look at it, they might withdraw or go neutral on it. That's our hope. But I would imagine there will still be people who will oppose anything that has Wachowski's name and ADU. I get that. I get it. But I think it's significantly altered the concerns that they have with impact fees at a certain size. We've cut it off at 750 feet. After that, the impact fees are there. And home ownership, we've mirrored Assemblymember Bloom's bill that will allow for no home ownership for 5 years. I expect to study it extensively to determine what the true impact is. But those seem to be the two big enchiladas that are concerning people.
Thank you. Any others that have questions? Oh, Assemblymember Bloom.
Questions and comments? I can ask a question. Has it really been 4 years since you and I have been working on this issue for a long time? That's for sure, and it is remarkable how many units have been built in that period of time. I think in terms of responding to the housing crisis, this relatively simple change around ADUs has produced a tremendous amount of housing, whereas other efforts, unfortunately, many of them have languished. So I'm glad that you and I continue to be pushing this along. We, along with two other members, have legislation this year. There's intense interest in the subject. I think because, as I've suggested to many, at least in my communities, this is an effort that is supported by both YIMBYs and NIMBYs. The folks who I talk to in my district, who have typically been folks who have opposed development, have embraced and welcomed ADUs, and of course those who I join with in promoting additional housing efforts have also been very enthusiastic about ADUs. I think the changes that are in your bill are important. I appreciate the fact that you worked hard to be able to come to agreement with the committee on amendments. You and I spoke yesterday about my becoming a co-author of your bill. I hope you'll become unless you already are, a co-author of my bill. But I'm happy to move this forward and make the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. We need a second? Okay, we have a second. We have Assemblymember Bloom and Assemblymember Ramos. Okay, would you like to close?
I would urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for working with the committee. It was really important to help get these proposed amendments through, and makes me feel good that you took the time and that you appreciate the fact that everyone is working hard to help make this go forward. And I think there's a lot of great things that are going to happen with the ADUs, with so many people trying to come up with a solution, and we'll see what happens on the floor. So thank you very much. Secretary, take the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Aguiar-Curry. Aguiar-Curry, aye. Lackey. Bloom.
Aye.
Bloom, aye. Berner Horvath. Ramos. Aye. Ramos, aye. Gonzalez. Robert Rivas. Vopel.
Aye.
Vopel, aye.
Thank you.
Bill's going to need one more vote, so it's on call. All right, let's move on. Who we have in the audience? Well, it looks like we have Senator Hertzberg, item number 5, SB205. Welcome, Mr. Senator.
Thank you so much. I'll make this fast if the committee so approves. So, how you doing, man? As stormwater runs into our system, the federal government and the state government